I want to welcome you this week. It's the third week of these sequels. My name is Christopher Amos Chikomekonta. I'm the producer of the Church of Uganda at 150 years of our history, and it's a celebration. So as you listen to the audio and as you watch, please have that in the background. We are celebrating a church which is shortly becoming 150 years old. Now, last week we finalized with the martyrdom. This week we are going to see the period after the martyrdom of Namugongo, and it's a period going to take us between 1887 all the way to 1891, and this is the most sacred period. The missionaries never wanted to tell us more of what was happening in this period. Even what they told us has a lot of lies, so we are going to uncover a lot, and we are going to bring out all the secrets. In these circles, I can assure you, we shall not leave anything under the carpet. It's a celebration, so why should we lie to each other about our own history? So I'm going to begin this week, or today in particular, with this 16th sequel by looking at the digging of the Kabaka's Lake at Nkao. Nkao is the older name of Mengo. In that year, Mwanga returned from Munyonyo back to his Nkao palace. But this Nkao palace was a little bit in the lower grounds. He could not see the lake, so he missed the water scenery. Remember his father's palace at Lubaga, you could see the water. You could see Lake Victoria from Lubaga Hill, but you could not from the Nkao palace. And this was a tradition. A Kabaka was not allowed to live in the palace of his father. Every Kabaka had to make his own palace. That's why Mwanga began the Nkao palace away from Banda Balogo, away from Rubaga, away from Muziwazara Mpanga, and away from the other palaces of his father. And he began his own at Nkao, and also his resort at Munyonyo. And as a matter of fact, there was also a smaller palace at Nsambia. Yes, in Zambia was also Mwanga's palace. Now, he therefore, having missed the water scenery, he came up with an idea which he sold to his chiefs: the creation of a man-made lake at Nkao itself. And the Kabaka was not simply seeking the opinion, but it was almost an order. He wanted it done. And of course, his treasurer, Apol Kagwa, and the Katikiro Mukasa assured him that they had enough resources to look after men who will dig the lake. And a suitable place within Nkao was found in Indeba. Actually, in Indeba, that's where his own springs for water, the Kanywabarangira, was situated, very near the current St. Peter's Church in Indeba. And so, again, very near the wells, it was decided that this project should be begun in that very place. Now, the people who would dig were his own subjects. They were not going to get people from foreign lands. And therefore, people were forced to begin the digging. And so, people had to do the work. And very soon, a very big number of about 3,000 young men had been mobilized from across the kingdom. And guess who the Kabaka decided to give this responsibility? It was his Royal Army Commander, Omugabe Gabriel Chintu. And so Gabriel Chintu, through the chiefs, were able to mobilize people, and the digging began. And Kintu's soldiers also joined in. The work was not that simple. So Kintu would sound the drum every morning, and close to 3,000 young men would wake up and collect their baskets. These baskets, either they would have them or they would go for new ones. The hill across Nkao was a hill called Akasozika Impala. Impala was a Swahili word, and it meant those good-looking animals And there were so many on that hill. So the Kasozika Impala had a market for baskets. And the people who used to make these baskets were not people from Buganda. They were strangers, they were foreigners, but they were welcome because they did a very valuable work to make baskets. And these baskets, the Kabaka had enough resources to buy them from these people, and these baskets were used to scoop the clay from the dug pits and be able to generate a big or a huge pit where water would go to be able to create a man-made lake. Remember, the people who came believed in various things. Others were the abolished Christians. Others were Katikiro Mukasa's favorite, the sorcerers, while others were the Muslims who had been sidelined all along. All throughout this martyrdom, no one could hear more things about them, but they were there. They still existed. And so as they dug these pits, they would sing. And some of the songs they used to sing were actually vulgar word songs. And those who believed in Christianity were not very happy with the vulgar songs. So what they decided to do, I don't know whether you've ever seen a certain company, which I'll not mention by name, but which deals with electricity, and whose men, when they are lifting the logs, those electric poles, and they are lifting them to put them in places, they would sing songs, and those songs, and I'm talking about today, those songs would have vulgar words. Okay, I think today that company has been replaced by another, and I think the other company now is using cranes to put these logs in place. But that other company, I won't tell you by name. These logs were used to be shifted by men from the lorry into the places they wanted to shift, and the men would say vulgar words, would sing vulgar words, vulgar songs. So this tradition is actually very historical. It goes back to the lake digging years of 1887 and 1888. And so those who were Christians in 1887 became uncomfortable with the vulgar singing, although that's what encouraged the men to scoop the soil into the baskets and then lift the baskets up the pit. And so Gabriel Chintu, on advice, decided to find out who are the former Christians. Can you then have your own shift so that you can sing those songs you used to sing with the Christian missionaries? And they accepted. And then he also asked the Muslims, I think you also better have your shift of your own so that then you can sing those Muslim songs of yours. And the sorcerers, you can also have a shift of your own so that you can also sing your sorcery songs. And then shifts began, and actually this worked, because then as they sang songs they felt better. However, a very dangerous precedent was set. It meant that the army for the first time was going to be divided. His navy was going to be divided. Those who had sympathy with Christians would join the Christian shift. Those who were sympathetic to Muslims would join the Muslim faction. And remember, Muslims were the first foreign religion, and many people had simply converted from the Islamic religion to the Christianity. And now, because of this martyrdom, people were having second thoughts and returning back to the Muslim ones. And then of course, therefore, the Muslims were resurrecting as a force, and now they are being joined by even some members of the navy. Sorcerers, same, they also had members. So every shift was as heavy in scooping the soil in preparation for the Kabaka's lake, and people were in shifts, and that's how the work continued and went on and on and on. Shortly, the man-made lake was ready. Yeah, people had been very successful, and water from the streams, the whole of this Mengo had a lot of streams, and all the streams were diverted to take the water to the lake, to the man-made lake. And before you knew it, the new lake had been formed. And so in 1887, Kabaka Mwanga officially opened it. But during the opening ceremony, he surprised everybody with an announcement that he preferred to sail by boat from Nkao to Munyonyo. He therefore wanted the stream that would take him there, covered by papyrus, and therefore the lake stream had to take him to Karowa and then join the Mayanja, the Mayanja stream, and then the Mayanja stream would finally take him to Munyonyo. Because I think that Mayanja stream in Busega would finally reach Kajansi, and Kajansi will definitely have a bigger papyrus area with a stream that would finally take him to the waters of Lake Victoria. Not necessarily Munyonyo, but into the waters of Lake Victoria. So it was very, very possible. And his expert assured him that, yes, it is very, very possible. But now, unfortunately, the people refused. They said, this Kabaka of ours is joking. How can we, after digging like this, thinks that we've done nothing and we have to dig again? So the Omugabe Gabe Ochintu was summoned, and each shift was given a leader. The Muslim leaders were given a sub-county chief called Muguruma to lead them in the lake digging or the lake extension. Apolokagwa, who is also the treasurer in the palace, was appointed to lead the Anglican faction. And another chief called Henry Nyonyintono was also a sub-county chief, was appointed to lead the force of the Roman Catholics, while Katikiro Mukasa volunteered, although he was very old, but in leadership, he volunteered to lead the sorcerers in the actual digging of the lake. And that's what happened. So in 1888, the digging had not begun, and Mwanga was getting angry. And when he asked why the digging of the lake is not continuing, Gabe Ochintu was like, but you see, we are having problems. The mobilized people, the people we gave leadership, all of them, they are doing nothing. Apolokagwa is saying his men are refusing. Nyonyintono is saying his men are refusing. Muguruma is saying his men are refusing. Katikiro Mukasa saying the sorcerers will not dig. They are saying they are all tired. They cannot dig the thing anymore. And so Mwanga was very angry. And as far as he was concerned, the solution was to get rid of all of them. All of them. Maybe except Katikiro would not accept to get rid of his sorcerers. But all these other people who Gabe Ochintu had appropriated different sections, Mwanga decided that I think it was time to get rid of all of them. And so what happens? In 1987, he planned to get all the Christians and all the Muslims, diggers of the lake, put them on a ship or a boat, sail them into Lake Victoria on an island, and let them perish from that island. But again, a young man called Ham Mukasa, who was now 16 years, in 1888, was asked by Mwanga to sign up in the army. The intention was not so much to serve in the army, but to spy for him. That's how favorite he had become. So he now gets an appointment in the army, and he actually sent him to Buddu as a cover-up in a cover-up. He announced that he was a chief, and he gave him a sub-county chief, not even a sub-county chief, a location, a parish chieftaincy in Buddu. But it was a cover-up for him to be able to spy to Buddu, into Buganda and other areas, spying for the Kabaka on exactly what was happening in as far as the army was concerned. And so this Mukasa began his job. He left Nkao Palace, reported to duty in Buddu. On arrival, he was put in the command of soldiers, actually in the Navy, in Gabunga's forces of Gabriel Ochintu, to fight in Busoga. On Kome Island, there was trouble. So when he returned later after the victory in Kome Island, he was pleased. The people at the palace were very pleased with him, especially Katikiro Mukasa, sorry. And he also wanted to know what the people were saying about the digging of the lake, and the young boy gave him very bad news. People were not willing to dig anymore. So the deal to ferry all Muslim and Christians onto our way was finalized, and a fresh effort would be made to design a new strategy to find the new diggers after all these ones had been sent away into the sea, as we shall see in the next sequel 17. However, I want to conclude with Alexander Mackay. Alexander Mackay sought for permission to travel south of the lake in the year 1887, and he had his reasons for doing so. Apparently, at Natete, he got scared of the situation, this lake digging, and so he decided to flee south of the Lake Victoria. After all, that area south of Lake Victoria was very rich with missionary mission stations at Usagara, at Ugogo, at Mamboya. All those places were full of missionaries, not only Anglicans, but also Roman Catholic mission stations. So Mackay prepared a nephew of the late Bishop Hannington, he was called Reverend Cyril Gordon, to take over charge at Natete. There was also an extra missionary called Walker. Walker was on his way from Freetown, Mombasa, and he was coming towards Natete. So finally, on the 21st of July, 1887, Alexander Mackay left Buganda, and he was accompanied, he didn't go alone, he was accompanied by Reverend Ashe, and they both left to Usukuma. That is the new place where he had decided to settle. Sorry, Usambiro. Usambiro was farther away on mainland Tanganyika. It was east of Lake Victoria, on the slope of the Rift Valley. It was gently sloping. Mackay cultivated trees there for future timber, practiced carpentry, and continued translating the St. John Gospel into Luganda. The Reverend Father Simeon Ludell did not go away. Despite all this lake digging and all that, he remained in Buganda and instead was joined by the Reverend Father Alphonse Brad and Reverend Father Camille Doneite. Those ones joined him in Buganda at Narukolongo. With time, both missionaries and explorers got more worried about what was happening. They saw the tension. They saw Mwanga and his schemes, trying to smuggle people into the lake and make them starve there. Things were not good. So they got very, very worried. Where Mackay was, where he had begun a station, the nearest town there was called Musalala Ndogo. And we shall later find out that that's actually where he was buried when he died, but that will be in later sequels. Now, Mwanga realized that Mackay was not returning, and this got him very worried. So Mwanga, on realizing that Mackay is not returning, knew that this man must have run away. He got angry and he expelled all the Christian missionaries of the Anglican Communion. So now all the missionaries left Natete to the south of Lake Victoria. So now it was the Anglican time. Mutesa had expelled the Roman Catholics, although they later came back. Now Mwanga decided to expel the Anglican missionaries. So let's stop here today, and tomorrow we shall then look at what happened next. May the good Lord bless us all. Amen.